What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer here with Mike Gallagher to walk you through tonight's 9-game slate. Post-Christmas slate hangover a little bit for me. I'm feeling a little burnt out, honestly. My eyes have now set to the calendar of next Thursday, where there's a 2-game slate. I'm going to try to get most of that day away from screens. How are you feeling on this post-Christmas NBA?
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah. Watched a little bit of basketball yesterday, watched some NFL, sweat some fantasy football stuff. But I'm excited to get kind of back in the swing of things like we've talked about before. It's hard to juggle family stuff and all that, and it was easier for me this year, but still always tough to help the family cook and stuff. And I was like, hey, I'm trying to watch this sub pattern. Let me watch how many Hawkes cook up real quick. But pretty standard stuff. But tricky slate today, man. A lot of teams have been off for a couple days, and some players are coming back. So excited to talk through it.
Yeah, Jaime Jaquez, big Christmas day, not only on the court but in the commercials. I want to shout out Hotels.com for, I don't know whose idea it was between the NBA and Hotels.com for that partnership, but I love the idea of doing the commercials with star player with young rookie player on the team as a way of sort of introducing the audience to, hey, there's this young player that you should get invested in as well that you might not know as much about, along with this established kind of superstar. I love that, and I hope there's just more of that in the game. The NBA has so many fun storylines to it with individual players. I loved seeing Jaime Jaquez and Peyton Watson get opportunities for some screen time. Okay.
Just about LeBron anymore.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to the game by game stuff. Let's start with Brooklyn and Detroit. On the Brooklyn side of things, still without Lonnie Walker and Ben Simmons. What are your notes on the Nets tonight?
Yeah, getting pretty healthy. They're on a back-to-back. They get Detroit today, who they just played in the last game, and then they get Milwaukee tomorrow. The important note here, injury and rotation-wise, is Dennis Smith Jr.'s impact on the backcourt, namely Spencer Dinwiddie. After the game, Jacques Vaughn said that DSJ is going to cut into Spencer Dinwiddie's minutes. So, we have him at 31.5. We've seen him touch upper 30s, but I think that's kind of off the table now. We know they like his impact for defense as well. So, I think DSJ cutting into the guards is something that is pretty noteworthy here. And also, Mikal Bridges finally got off his little slump here, but it's pretty easy to do that against the Pistons. So, should be mostly good to go. Still waiting for Lonnie and Ben to come back, and really doesn't sound like Ben's very close.
Yeah. Pistons side of things, Jalen Duren listed probable. That's nice to see. Killian Hayes listed probable with illness. Isaiah Stewart also probable. So we're getting a healthier version of the Pistons. I don't know what that means for rotations, as it's been very, very volatile and in flux this season, especially in the front court. We saw James Weissman go away last game after he had been playing pretty well and effectively previous games. What are your expectations for the Pistons tonight?
So hashtag the watch. We had Jaden Ivey in a starter's jersey today. So we saw him when Killian Hayes, who was supposed to play last game and didn't with an illness that was kind of late-ish. It was weird, but anyways, it sounds like they're going to start Ivey again. Just so many questions here. So let's talk about Duren returning. Last time he returned from injury, about 2 weeks off. Same ankle now. He's been dealing with this ankle for a little bit. Actually, both his ankles this year have been a problem. But last game he returned from injury, he came up the bench and he played 29 minutes. So I think that's on the table. I don't have a starter's jersey watch on him, but I think he probably is going to start. And that would push Isaiah Stewart to the 4, Boyan to the 3. And then, as I mentioned, I think Jaden Ivey at the 2. Where does Killian Hayes fit in? Does Alec Burks get cut down? Does Joe Harris go away? Kevin Knox probably going away here. And then I think Bagley's, you mentioned, he's going to be the backup center with Weissman kind of going away here. So, and then also should mention Asar Thompson's minutes are going to kind of crater here. We saw him kind of hit upper teens when they would play this big lineup. So Asar could really, really get cut down here. Which is pretty unfortunate. But Boyan's playing a bunch. V-Stu's been playing when he could avoid foul trouble. I think that probably will take something to watch, though, so may not have too much. But really messy rotation. This was one of the trickier ones to do for minutes because we just kind of don't know who the 9th and 10th guys are. It could be a number. Marcus Sasser could be a guy. It's kind of tough. But they got to get a win here, going for the single season losing streak record.
Just as a reminder, last time Jalen Duren returned after, I think it was like a week or two out.
Yeah.
He came off the bench. There was a note about minutes limitations. He ended up playing 29 minutes in that game. I remember it very well
Yep.
because of taking an under on him, assuming that there were meaningful minutes limitations because he was coming off the bench. So I think we were ending up projecting him around like 20, 22 minutes, something like that. He played 29. So I'm just bringing that up, not to rehash trauma, but to prepare ourselves that if there are notes that Jalen Duren is on any sort of minutes restriction, the minutes restriction, if unnamed, might mean like 30 plus. It might not like the 25, even if he's off the bench, which last time they started Isaiah Stewart and Marvin Bagley ahead of him in that game, which I thought was a big signal that he was on a minutes limitation. And he still ended up playing 29 minutes in that one. So just be prepared with the Jalen Duren stuff. Even if he doesn't start, there's a chance that there's a path to still pretty good minutes here.
And then also just should note too, from the shoot around video I checked out that it was Weissman, Bagley, and Duren working together and no Stewart. So, I mean, he could have been like off the shot, right? But that's that's true, and he was working with Boyan and the fours, that's a pretty good indication that Stewart would be viewed as a 4. So again, very, very unclear. We're kind of piecing together what we can, but one of the trickier spots to watch today for sure.
Winky in chat asking, are we sure Stewart would start after they ditched the double big lineup last game? So how do you feel about Stewart starting tonight?
Pretty I mean, not like I wouldn't like bet my life on it, but I'm pretty based on what we've seen, based on the sub patterns. I feel pretty good. I think it's like a 3-1 favorite kind of a situation. Like I'd be mildly surprised if he kind of came off the bench here or started with Duren. Well, actually, if Duren came behind him, that would be the path, right? If they did bring Duren off the bench again, I could see them going that way. So, as far as like Stewart coming off the bench, like behind Duren, I'd be really shocked if they did that. But I could see them bring Duren off the bench and kind of going that way to free up some wing minutes.
Okay. Let's move to Orlando and Washington. On the Orlando side of things, Markelle Fultz still listed out with the left knee tendonitis. They have questionable tags on Jalen Suggs with left wrist sprain and Joe Ingles with left ankle sprain. They'll also be without Jonathan Isaac, who is listed out due to soreness with his right hamstring. So what are your notes on the Magic tonight?
Yeah, Jalen Suggs did some shoot-around stuff, and he did an interview with the media, so that's usually a pretty good indication he's going to play with that little wrist injury that cost him some time last week. So I would expect him to get the start. That would bump Gary Harris back to the bench and kind of squeeze the minutes a little bit. We've seen them still go with Caleb Houston in smaller lineups when they had most of their guard up. They basically would play Joe Ingles as more of a 4. So that's something to watch as well. But yeah, expecting Suggs to get back in the starting lineup. It'd be pretty close to a full go. As far as starting young players, his minutes have been one of the lightest in the league for a guy that's consistently starting.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this impacts Anthony Black, who's starting to play better of late. The matchup against Washington is one that could still facilitate minutes for Anthony Black if they really wanted to make that a priority, even with Suggs back. But that's the guy that I'm most interested to watch kind of the impact on here. Washington side, nothing listed on the injury report at 1:30. Did I miss any filings from the Wizards today? Or are they just fully healthy?
They're healthy. Yeah, DeLon Wright is back. Another situation where, man, you're feeling the squeeze here. We know they try to find Blau balling minutes. They like Corey Kispert. Are they going to bunt? This is really like the second or third time all year we've seen DeLon and Landry Shamet together. Could Shamet get squeezed? Could Kispert feel the squeeze a little bit? Could they play small? Obviously, a terrible matchup to do that against the Magic, who are just killing around the paint. So, yeah, we've got kind of a little bit of a hedge with Shamet, a little bit lighter on Kispert, not as much of a minute ceiling on Bilal Coulibaly. And then, I think Moose is kind of out. I think they'll probably just play, small at the 3-4, and then have Danilo Gallinari be their backup 5-man.
Yep. All right, Atlanta and Chicago. On the Atlanta side of things, Trae Young listed questionable with a right AC shoulder sprain. Jalen Johnson listed questionable. He's been out for some time. AJ Griffin still out due to personal reasons, and DeAndre Hunter out due to right knee inflammation. So what are your notes on the Hawks tonight?
Yeah, another situation that's a little tricky. Trae went through shoot around. This is an injury that he hurt, I want to say like 4 or 5 games ago. He's been listed a couple times. Generally unaffected. Been playing really, really great basketball right now. So expecting Trae to be in there based on the shoot around and just this. He's been listed with this before. So I think he's in. Jalen Johnson back. He's been practicing for almost a week now. He got cleared for practice on December 20th. So expecting him to return to the starting lineup, which will make our best ball teams quite happy. And then Hunter out. We know they've started Sadiq Bey as a 3 before, so I'd expect him to start. Wouldn't be totally shocked if they went Garrison, but I'd be pretty surprised. So Trey, DeJounte, Sadiq Bey, and then Jalen Johnson and Capella. We'll see how much double big lineup they go to. That's been a really big piece of their sub patterns. Like pretty much almost every game they've been running like 6-7 minutes of the Okongwu Capella. Now that you can't play Jalen Johnson Capella and Okongwu together, so I think that comes down substantially. So like again, they play different positions, but I think Capella and Okongwu could lose some minutes. So kind of same trickle down effects. They're playing a little bit. Having more. You're basically bumping Sadiq Bey from a 4 to a 3. That's going to affect Bogdan's minutes. We saw Seth Lundy play a bunch the last game, kind of over the top of Wes Matthews. But yeah, still think that there's plenty of minutes to Sadiq Bey. Maybe not the super high upside. We've seen him kind of flirt with 40 at times. But yeah, should be a pretty interesting spot for them. Big rotation changes without Hunter for a couple weeks.
Yeah, you could in a pinch play Jalen at the 3. I think there's enough shooting from him to potentially do that. The defense would be a question mark in terms of being able to stay in front of guys on the perimeter, but you could maybe do that in a pinch, which maybe you'd see if they're shorthanded without Hunter tonight, because there is a big gap between their talent level just in terms of the rotation. Like once you get past the, let's say, Okongwu, Bogdanovic, Jalen Johnson, Bey territory on the roster, Garrison Matthews, Wesley Matthews, Lundy, it's a pretty big talent gap. So you might see them try to kind of finagle things. They've been willing to play pretty tight rotations on the whole, but it definitely reduces the likelihood just having an extra front court body available to them. And it'll be interesting to see, like they've been playing so tight. They might want to scale back some of the minutes just to give guys a little bit of a break as the schedule, continues to be really, really heavy over the course of the.
You kind of cut out a little bit. Can't hear you. You're kind of popping in and out, so I think it's on your end. There you go.
Okay, I'll pop out and pop back in if you want to start talking about Chicago.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, so as Chat had noted, Vooch was at shoot around lifting weights from Casey Johnson, but do want to note that they had upgraded one of their kind of G League guys, Adama Sadogo, who's been pretty fun. He's had a couple nice summer league games, so that upgrade from out to questionable is something to keep an eye on. Listed with the groin thing, I could definitely see Vooch missing this one. Don't have a great read on it here, but we'll see. Obviously, if he didn't start, it would be pretty heavy. Andre Drummond, who's been really holding down the fort as the backup overall, anyways. But that's mostly it. I think that's something we'll be watching. But I think he's in. But again, the upgrade from the G League guy is really never a good sign.
Yeah, and Vooch generally is one of the more durable players in the league. So, usually he's able to play through questionable tags and whatnot, and he tries to give it a go. But obviously, if he's unable to go, Andre Drummond, would put up likely huge numbers in his absence in a favorable matchup here. Let's move to Indy in Houston. On the Indy side, Bruce Brown listed out. Thank you, Pacers, for listing him on the injury report today. That's very helpful to us. The G Leaguers are listed as questionable. What are your notes on the Pacers?
Yeah, Nembhard season here. We saw him pick up 2 quick fouls, and he still got to 36 minutes because he played 21 and a half second half minutes. He's the only on-ball D guy they got on this team. So, we got him at 32 and a half, I think, and he could smoke it. I could see him playing like upper 30s here just because, again, there's nobody on this team that could guard on ball to guard Fred VanVleet. I could see him matching Fred VanVleet's minutes, the minutes leader per game. So, a lot of minutes for Nemby. Certainly Buddy Hield, his minutes really spiked in the last game. First time he played, he only beat 34 minutes like once prior to last game. So very uncharacteristic to play him a lot. Again, that was a little bit of a byproduct of Nembhard's foul trouble early. Ben Mathurin's minutes created, and they were trying to run like this double big lineup last game because, again, as the Magic are like such a rim heavy team, and a lot of teams know that. but they just kept fouling. Miles Turner also got dinged up. Should mention that, but he's good to go. So yeah, expecting the starting lineup to be the same with Nemhard, Howie, healed. Obi Toppin still hanging in there. Minutes for pretty scary against a lot of size on the Houston side, but expecting to start. Bench should be Jalen Smith for sure. Wouldn't be surprised if we get some overlap with Isaiah Jackson. Neesmith will be their main wing defender off the bench, and then McConnell behind Halliburton with Matherin in there as well.
Yeah, I think this is actually not that bad of a matchup for Obi Toppin from a staying on the floor perspective. With like Jabari doesn't really ISO a lot of guys. It's not as big of a part of his game. I think that's the bigger risk for Toppin. But yeah, it was a tough scene to have unders on Obi Toppin and Buddy Hield. Find out Bruce Brown is out, who wasn't even listed on the injury report, and then you watch Jalen Smith and Aaron Neesmith just foul as your only salvation was hoping those guys could stay on the court, and they could not. So it was a tough scene for us on Saturday. Houston side of things, Reggie Bullock and Tari Eason listed as available tonight for the Rockets. What are your notes on Houston?
Yeah, just my guy Jabari Smith. He's kind of cooking here. Really strong game. Alfred Şengün just smash, man. They had no answer for him. They were trying to get like Jeremiah Robinson Earl to help on defense and all that, and it just wasn't going well. So yeah, Rockets are tough, man. 15 and 12, playing pretty good ball, but yeah, a little bit mid-ceiling coming off with Tari. Minutes have been pretty strong, and then Jalen Green's minutes have really fallen off. We've seen him kind of lose playing time to the bigger lineups with Brooks playing more as a 2. Something to watch there. But yeah, Rockets playing pretty strong. Fred VanVleet, minutes are coming down a little bit, not hitting 40 as much, but yeah. So we're pretty much locked in. This rotation's been pretty consistent. It's just a matter of how many minutes can Jabari play. If it's a lot, then things can kind of be really nice for him. But yeah, he's got a pretty wide range if you could avoid fouls.
Yeah, it seems like the only question mark on Houston is, does Tari Eason eat into starters minutes? And if so, who on a given night? It could be Jabari, it could be Şengün, it could be Jalen Green. It's been Green more often of the 3, but that's, generally the question mark on Houston. And then we'll continue to monitor in the backcourt how they bring along Amen Thompson, and if that eats into Aaron Holiday at all. So far, very limited. All right, Memphis and New Orleans. On the Memphis side of things, no Steven Adams, no Brandon Clark, no Juju Jackson, no Luke Kennard, no Jake LaRavia, no Derrick Rose. Questionable tags for John Conchar and Marcus Smart. What are your notes on the Grizzlies?
Yeah, Marcus Smart. He's been out for a little bit. Definitely a chance he could come off the bench because Vince Williams has been playing so well. I would expect them to start Smart, though. So Smart, Bane, John Morant, playing great since Ja came back undefeated. Still expect Bismack to start, especially in this matchup. Definitely want a little bit of size on the other end, but I could see them kind of flipping him in and out, Biyombo, that is. Then obviously Jaren Jackson. And then the question is, I feel like someone, and should mention, Contra hurt his hand in the last game, got caught in a jersey, according to Taylor Jenkins, listed with an illness today. So feels like one of Zaire or Contra is going to get iced. Kind of was leaning Zaire, but with Contra ill, they may just sit him out. And then Santi Aldama's minute should be pretty secure. Tillman's sort of back to life. Roddy's iced. Gilliard's iced. LaRavia's iced. But Vince is safe. I think Vince has clearly secured himself as kind of the core, or you could even say 7 with the starters that I mentioned and Santi Aldama. I think he's kind of got, and then it should mention, Marcus Smart in there too. But Vince is kind of safe. We've got him at 23 minutes, but I could see him playing a ton here, especially if they do keep him in the first unit after Smart returned from a pretty severe foot injury.
New Orleans side, Larry Nance Jr. doubtful here, still without Matt Ryan, and Cody Zeller listed questionable. What are your notes on the Pelicans?
Just to mention the tough loss. They went with Jeremiah Robinson Earl late in this game, which was quite odd, which iced my original guy, Herb Jones, not my guy this year. That was weird, but I don't really have. I think that's kind of a one-off thing, but not great to see Herb. I know you've got Herb in some season-long shares. That was kind of rough, but I think that Willie Green is pretty pissed. That was one of his most frustrating pressers he's done all year because the Rockets just grinded him down with just hustle points, straight really good defense. So I don't think there's any sweeping changes and would expect Herb to bounce back, but especially since they're going to need for this matchup here. But that was a tough scene to see Herb get benched.
Yeah, in the games that they've had Trey Murphy and Najee Marshall available with Ingram and Zion, he's been pretty quiet. And I think I don't want to speak for someone, what's going on in someone else's head, but it seems like he's not super comfortable in what his role is and kind of like looking over his shoulder a little bit in terms of like, if I play really good defense, do I stay on the floor, or does Trey Murphy shooting just, get me off the floor kind of regardless? And he's just looked hesitant and hasn't looked the same. So something that has been, challenging because he was so good before Murphy came back from a season-long standpoint, and the production has just really fallen off of late. Okay, Minnesota and OKC, the game that I know JJ Redick and Tim Legler, I was listening to their podcast today of the Christmas games that they wish they could have scheduled if they had all the information at their disposal. And one of them that Legler scheduled was Minnesota OKC. So he gets to see it today on his birthday. Shout out Legs. On the Minnesota side, Karl Anthony Towns listed questionable with left knee soreness. What are your notes on his availability tonight?
Yeah, missed the last game. We saw him limp to the locker room a couple of games ago. Pretty substantial limp, so I think he's got a decent chance to return here. Getting that Q tag is Minnesota is usually pretty good about that. Not listing guys for questionable for like weeks at a time. So would lean him in here. Obviously, he returned to the starting lineup. Bump Slomo back to the bench, and then that would squeeze a little bit of some minutes off. Really, just everyone. Shake Milton would kind of get cut down. They would play a little bit bigger, but yeah, really great win for them. 22-6, man. Just no stopping this team. Obviously, if he's out, they would start Slomo again. I think they might not have him a little bit on a tighter leash because they need the on-ball defense. But again, I'm expecting Cat to return here.
Yeah, and you want to talk about matchups, man. Minnesota they have Sacramento just completely in a bind from a matchups perspective. Like De'Aaron Fox was great in this game, and it did not matter. And he was just having a really challenging time dealing with the bevy of wing defenders that they can throw on him. And man, Minnesota just had them locked up on this one.
We'll talk about the Sacramento Lambs in a minute. They threw some funky stuff out there.
OKC side of things, Josh Giddey listed questionable. J-Dub listed questionable as well here. J-Dub with illness, Josh Giddey with left ankle sprain. If they are without those two, we could see Shea versus the world in the Minnesota defense tonight. So what are your expectations for the Thunder?
Yeah, we saw Giddey roll his ankle pretty good last week, missed the last game. That got Case and Wallace in the starting lineup, guarding a lot of big Lakers on the other end, which he's done before. He can guard up. Mark Dagnall's talked about that multiple times. So yeah, I don't have a great read on Giddey. It was bad sprain, so I think he could definitely miss this one. And then, as you mentioned, J-Dub, who a couple of the beats tweeted that he was going to be questionable, and he replied to them that they were quick with their reporting. So it sounds like he's in pretty good spirits. Again, these illness tags kind of have really no read. I would if they're both out, if one's out, I should say, I think they would just start Kasem regardless. They kind of trust him. They would need someone to guard Ant. I think that would be him and Dort a little bit. But if they're both out, I would say Kaysen. And I think they would go to Kenrich Williams here just from a substitution pattern standpoint, getting some size. He's guarded a lot of fours, and that's if Cat's in too. So, yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at. But, tough read on that J-Dub illness tag.
Yeah, I think if they were to start Kaysen, it would be Dort on Ant, Kaysen on Conley, Shea on Jaden, and then if they have size on Giddey on Cat or Kyle Anderson, or if not Kenrich. I think that all makes sense to me. And the Gobert matchup is a decent one for Chet in terms of size wise they're similar, and then he can try to drag Gobert out to the 3-point line and open things up for the rest of the offense.
Yeah, Kaysen will get some Ant minutes just because Ant plays more minutes than Dort does.
Yeah. Utah and San Antonio. On the Utah side of things, they are getting healthier. Keontae George and Talen Horton-Tucker both listed available. Jordan Clarkson and Larry Markkinen not on the injury report. What are your notes on Utah?
Yeah, another really tough team to do. Chris and I worked on these minutes together, and it's just a matter of who's getting squeezed here. So we saw Chris Dunn get all the minutes, 34 of them in the last game. Played really well too as the main on-ball guy. But he could be kind of lead guard to out of the rotation. We saw him out of the rotation earlier because they're bringing Keontae George back, as you mentioned. Talen Horton-Tucker will be back. So, I think they're going to start Keontae George again. He was kind of starting. There was commentary really the whole time he's been going off that he's like a main piece for them. So I think he would start. I guess Sexton would start over Clarkson again. This has been really tricky. We're seeing Kelly Olynyk start over Walker Kessler. all the time. It's been really frustrating from our perspective. But kind of just to reshuffle here. So like we know Keontae's safe, we know Jordan Clarkson's safe, we know Colin Sexton's safe. Feel pretty good about THT being safe. And then we're getting into the how safe is Ekbaji? Probably a little bit. How safe is Chris Dunn? Not safe. He could go completely away. Simone Fontecchio, he can go completely away. We saw them run that 4-guard lineup off the bench when they were subbing guys in. So really the bottom line, I see Chris Dunn and Simone Fontecchio's minutes kind of cratering here. And then we saw Laurie Markkinen play pretty full minutes. He'll be out there pretty good. But yeah, this is a tough one to do just from figuring out who gets squeezed.
Yeah, and this is a team that we know is very comfortable running 10-man rotations, a team that's going to want to get looks at guys as well. There's been kind of the pressure from the front office to play Taylor Hendricks more. So it's going to be messy for a few weeks until we get closer to the trade deadline, and I assume we'll see some movement here from the Jazz that would open some things up. I would assume that Jordan Clarkson is a strong candidate to get moved at the deadline this year, but we'll see. But until then, tread carefully because there's outside of Lowry, I think there is a meaningful floor to everybody else's minutes on the team. Eventually that Keontae will graduate into that same category, but as he's just returning from an injury, I think there's a meaningful floor to his minutes as well. So outside of Lowry, I'd be very, very careful here.
We only have Keontae at 25 minutes, so we're expecting him to start, and then again leaning Sexton, but they were pretty comfortable starting Clarkson and Keontae George together, and then I guess Walker Kessler starts. I don't know though. Like this is just so unpredictable.
Yep. All right. San Antonio side of things. All eyes on Victor Wembanyama, who, what a weird series of events on Saturday night in the sense that there was reports that he was going to be on a minutes limit. Then there was a starting lineup that Keldon Johnson was not in, which was surprising. And Keldon Johnson, we didn't know if he was on a minutes limit. Then Wembanyama is ruled out entirely. Keldon Johnson still doesn't go back into the starting lineup. So it was just a really weird series of events. There was actually video of this that Wembanyama actually kind of turned his ankle it was already like a soft spot ankle, had turned it on a ball boy while doing some individual pregame work. And it wasn't like it wasn't a deep turn or even, I wouldn't even say a roll. It was really just a turn of the ankle, but he reacted negatively to it and they decided to be very, very cautious with him. He's listed questionable tonight with that right ankle sprain. Dominic Barlow also listed questionable as a G Leaguer on the 2-way. And then Zach Collins listed probable with left knee soreness. But what is your expectation for Wembanyama? What was the thing with Keldon not starting? What else do we got on the Spurs?
Yeah, so with Wemby, as you mentioned, he rolled that same ankle, and he already, quote, had a limitation on that ankle according to Pop, so they just shut him down, even though the injury wasn't that bad. So, yeah, expecting him to go, but have a cap on him. I don't think that they're going to want to play him a lot here. They don't want that ankle to be a lingering thing. He hurt himself in warmups. He could have a pretty hard cap on him. And, Pop was asked about why Keldon started. He said, quote, because they wanted to do it. Typical Pop answer. I guess they mix it. Again, another team that is just like mixing up lineups. We saw the Vassell hokey pokey. We saw the Zach Collins thing kind of go in and out. We've seen Champagnie start here. So it's the weird lineup off against the Jazz here. But Pop could just change his mind like later today. So we still got a decent minutes projection on Keldon. But I think that they're kind of just shuffling through it. Obviously, they're not playing well. And I think they're just kind of trying to try some different lineup combinations. But don't really have any conviction in this starting lineup. But Wemby will start if he's there though.
I would note that Keldon was still on pace for good minutes. He was still on pace. He played, I think it was around 15 to 16 first half minutes. So he was still on pace to play like starter levels minutes. Champagnie basically had the starting stint, the first 5.5 minutes, and then did not return in the first half. He ended up getting there on a minutes perspective by playing the final 12 minutes of the game in a massive blowout situation. But just a weird, lineup iteration to start Champagnie basically in the Keith Bogans role, the old 6-7 minutes, and then you're done for the half, but then play in blowout time. So even though if Keldon's on the bench tonight, there's a decent chance he's still playing starters-esque minutes, but really hard to tell with all the different mixing and matching going on in San Antonio.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Tom Orsborn had tweeted out that Julian Champagny said he thinks that he's going to start, which again, like I take it for what it's worth. It's very little.
Yep. Sacramento and Portland on the Sacramento side. Malik Monk and Alex Leonard listed questionable here. Monk, the more important part for projecting things forward. Right foot irritation for Malik Monk. What are your notes on him and the Kings?
Yeah, I think it was back-to-back related why he sat out. So I think he'll be back. A guy that's pretty tough in his career, usually plays through a lot of stuff. So I'd expect him to return. And then as we mentioned, when we were talking about this Wolves team, they rolled a huge lineup here to combat the Wolves' size. They basically played Keegan as a 2. Their second most used lineup was De'Aaron Fox, Keegan, Harrison Barnes, Trey Lyles, and Sabonis. They used it for 10 minutes. So, I think that was kind of a one-off situation. But the headline there was, I mean, we've been talking about Malik Monk impacting Kevin Huerter's minutes. He can't even get there in this game. So Huerter's down quite bad here, but I expect Monk to return to maybe a little bit of a cap. Foot irritation, a little bit concerning for a guy that's been pretty durable and likes to play through stuff. So I think maybe the high upside's off him, but certainly a better matchup for Portland. But yeah, the headline here is, man, Huerter just can't get anything going.
Yep. Portland side of things, Shaedon Sharpe listed questionable here, as is DeAndre Ayton. What are your notes on the Blazers?
So let's talk about DeAndre Ayton first. This is a lingering injury. He was listed with this right knee tendonitis earlier this month that cost him some time. So we'll see. Definitely a chance he could miss this one. Obviously, the Blazers aren't really playing for much at 7-21. So he could sit. That would most likely mean Duop Reith gets the start. And then Shaedon Sharpe, we saw him have that groin thing. And it was an injury he was playing through for a while, according to Chauncey Billups. And then they pulled the plug a couple games ago. That we had a miracle on a Scoot Under that day because it was kind of a hint that he wasn't playing well. So I expect him to have a little bit of a cap if he's back. That's Shaedon Sharpe. I'd expect him to start. That would push Malcolm Brogdon back to the bench. Don't think it'll affect Anthony Simons minutes at all, but and then if obviously he's out, they would continue to start Brogdon, who so frustrating, man. Like we saw 2 games ago, the minutes were cut, and then he gets full minutes here. To really screw us over. But I think I think Sharpe's actually more likely to play than Ayton is. But this knee tendonitis thing for a big man is always giving me pause.
Yeah, right after they said that they realized they needed to play him more, 2 games later on the injury report with right knee tendonitis. Not great. Yep. All right, Charlotte and the Clippers, last game of the night to discuss here. Charlotte side of things, without LaMelo Ball, without the G Leaguers, Brandon Miller listed questionable and Mark Williams still listed doubtful with the low back contusion. This is a long time to miss for a back bruise, essentially. So I'm starting to get a little bit like antennas up on what's going on here with Mark Williams. Mm-hmm. What are your notes on the Hornets?
Yeah, not great, man, because he returned from this thing at first, and then now he's been out for like weeks here, as you mentioned. So Brandon Miller also questionable. This is not the same ankle that he rolled twice in New York, so different ankle. Don't have a great read on that situation. If he's in, he's starting. If he's not, then I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of either go bigger or if they bring Cody Martin back. We saw Cody Martin return, really important on-ball defender. That's a role that Brandon Miller fills defensively. He's kind of guard wings and even point guards. And that's a job that Cody Martin has picked up quite a bit. They need it here, right? You need an on-ball defense in a really, really bad way. So I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of gets started here. And then Rozier will be back. We saw some knee soreness thing that kept him out. He should be back pretty full minutes. 12-point spread here. So against a team that's been kind of struggling, the Hornets here. So, but yeah, don't have a great read on Miller, but at least it's not the same ankle that he rolled twice.
Yep. All right. And then the Clippers side of things to close things out. Kawhi Leonard still listed as questionable here with the left hip contusion. The broadcast on Saturday, I think is when they last played, was noting that Ty Lue had indicated that they did not think this was a long-term concern with Kawhi Leonard. But what are your expectations on if we'll see Kawhi return tonight?
Yeah, after the game, Ty Lue said they're hopeful he'd be back. So, knee, hip contusion, pretty minor. At least it's not this knee thing that's been plaguing him for a while. So, yeah, expecting them back. Maybe the minutes are held in check. We saw them play a ton. So, again, big spread. So, hopefully they could kind of, in-game manage it if they could kind of blow out this Hornets team. But yeah, expecting him to return, that'll obviously bunch Amir Coffey back to the bench and shrink a little bit of the usage on Paul George, Harden, and Westbrook and those guys.
All right. Well, that'll do it for this edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report analysis show. As always, if you're enjoying the content that we're putting out on this channel, which includes not only the Injury Report analysis show, but also our podcast, which we will have another video episode up on Thursday of the Established Run NBA podcast. You can subscribe to this channel and get notifications whenever we go live. If you are interested in checking out some of our content behind the paywall, it'll be myself and Mike Gallagher at 5 o'clock tonight, breaking down this DFS slate from a good chalk, bad chalk, leverage, contrarian plays, and of course the flag plants. So make sure to tune in at 5 p.m. Eastern behind the paywall at establishedrun.com. And you can find more information on our packages, establishedrun.com/subscribe-MBA for more details. We are running a holiday sale that is 25% off all the packages now if you're interested in checking that out. As always, if you do enjoy and want to support this content, the best way to do that is to feed the algorithm by smashing that like button. You feed the algorithm, it helps feed our families. It allows us to feed you the NBA injury information and analysis you need each and every day to set your DFS lineups, your season-long lineups, and make your spread bets and prop bets. So smash that like button, help feed the algorithm. Nom, 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 nom. We'll see you tomorrow.